there something you could do where you had a ladder down? It's like a teeter-totter. He said, and maybe, you jump off the top rope and you hit one end of the ladder and Jeff's standing on the other and he goes flying across the ring and does like a big clothesline or a big crossbody. And I was like, well, I mean, that kind of sounds like Looney Tunes, like a Looney Tunes cartoon. You know what I mean? Like Roadrunner and... Thank you guys for having me, man. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to chatting with you guys. Chopping it up, as the kids say, I think.
Chopping it up, as they say. 4 million times. You guys held the WWE Championship 4 million times. I saw it on the internet.
Free Bird back in our days, when you say chopping it up, it was a completely different thing, brother.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Don't say that around Michael Hayes, man. Don't say chopping it up around Michael Hayes.
Oh, believe me, I learned many, many things, both good and bad, from Michael Hayes.
Oh my God!
We all have, Matt. We all have.
Sure.
Me and Ron used to see you guys, and you guys looked like you'd been up for 14 days. And Michael would be telling you stories at some Denny's at 2 o'clock in the morning. Me and Ron are trying to find our hotel room, and you're just sitting there looking at him like, "We're going to kill you. We're going to kill you." At one point.
One of my favorite quotes from John is he would occasionally turn to us towards the end of our run with Michael Hayes and said, "When the Hardys turn on Michael Hayes, they will kill him." And that was one of my favorite things to hear. And I was like, well, he can read what's going on. He's picking up and down.
It was unbelievable. It was just torture. And, poor guys. They're poor guys.
Yeah. Do you know about the first time we ever traveled with PS, John?
No.
So he told us, like, we're going to be together. He said, hey, we're going to be like the new birds. He said, so what we need to do, we're gonna be brethren. We're gonna be brothers. He said, that means we break bread together. That means we travel together. That means we stay we hill a hotel room together. He said, although you guys can alternate every single night who gets the cot. He said, because I'm gonna have a bed. Obviously, I'm the leader. He said, well, we do everything together. And the very first night that we were driving, we'd start driving. He said, hey, you guys, are you guys hungry? You want to get something to eat? He said, yeah, we'll get something to eat. And we ended up going to a Cracker Barrel. And we went in that Cracker Barrel, and he was like looking at the menu, and he started getting uncomfortable. And he's looking around on his Jones, and he said, "Hey, where's the damn bar in this place?" I said, "Oh, they don't have one. They don't serve alcohol." He said, "They don't serve alcohol. This is bullshit." He said, "No more stuff in restaurants if it doesn't have a bar. That's a rule from here on out." And that was
Free bird rule number 666.
Yeah, that was a free bird rule, man. And we got caught up in it.
And by the way, Michael Hayes does start almost every sentence with "Hey."
Yeah.
Hey. I don't know where that started from, but it just, hey.
He does.
And
hey.
Then he ends up talking. We just lost Gerald Brisco. He's a Freebird fan. He's mad about that.
Yesterday when I was cleaning out my deal, there it is, man. I found this in my shed, man. Dude, man. I found that, man. That's a pleasure. I'm gonna start wearing this damn thing in honor of Michael. I've never worn a fanny pack in my life until I found this thing.
When Michael came back, we worked in Buffalo or somewhere in a pay-per-view or something like that. And Michael came back, and Michael was like smart. He just loved to bitch. Michael's a tough guy. He loved to bitch about being hit too hard. Like that some bitch could say anything about potato.
Oh, God.
Because Michael would hit you with that left, but you didn't know if it was going to be in your head or your hip. You just knew it was going to be a potato.
Hard. Yes.
Yeah, very hard. So when he came back, he goes, "Can you kick me any harder?" I said, "Michael, I kicked you so hard a 20-year-old 8-ball popped up."
Yes, I do remember that, and you did.
I did, yes, I did.
Yeah. And you did kick him hard. I
did, but he laughed about that. He goes, "Well, if I'd have known, I got it back again."
There was one point.
I tell you, those punches to the head were the worst thing that he threw, though. I mean, it hit you in the head so hard, and he always did that damn knuckle thing. I never could understand why he wanted to do the knuckle thing. I had to hurt his knuckle.
Yeah.
Or at least I hope it did, because it hurt my head.
I'll never forget that night in Buffalo. You were talking about, here, let's get, you want what, this? Look at this. Okay. All right. Take a pop.
All right, cool, Matt. Let's go back. Man, you got what an iconic career you and your brother had. At what age did you guys actually start in the business, and how did you start, and who was your influences when you were first starting? I know you grew up in that Mid-Atlantic area, so man, you had the cream of the crop to watch during that time. But tell us a little bit about the actual really early beginnings of the Hardy Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, the first wrestling we were exposed to was Mid-Atlantic and NWA, and we, we dug that. And then we discovered once we started kind of getting into wrestling a little bit, then we discovered WWF at the time. And we're like, whoa, this NWA looked like guys who were like our dad. Our dad was an old country man who like got up at sunrise and worked his ass all day long, went to bed at sunset. He wasn't an emotional guy. He wasn't a big I love you guy. He wasn't emotional. He was a provider, right? He would make sure that we had clothes on our back, we had food on the table, and we had a roof over our head. That's kind of what he did. So we would see these guys on NWA. We're like, this is like our dad and his friends. Like they'd really throw down and they just whip your ass and do whatever it takes, whatever else. But then we'd see WWF and it's like, this is like glamour and glitz. And these guys are like larger than life, breathing superheroes. There's really a huge difference in the production. But once we started kind of getting into guys, the first guy that I really became a fan of was Macho Man. And I think it was the way that he talked and the way he spoke and his whole act. And it just, you didn't know what was real and what was not real. And you couldn't really tell where that line was. And then whenever we were obviously doing NWA and watching NWA stuff, big fan of Flair and the Four Horsemen. Also, actually, I did really enjoy Michael Hayes and Jimmy Jam Garvin. I enjoyed that version of the Freebirds as well.
They were great. The Freebirds were awesome. I grew up pretty similar. I was in high school when the Freebirds were running with the Von Erichs, and I mean, they were the hottest things in Texas. I mean, the Freebirds set Texas on fire. I mean, those guys were awesome. Michael Hayes is so underrated. He sold out, as he's told everybody, the Superdome with the jump. He's not afraid to tell you, but he did do it. I mean, Michael was legit. I mean, Michael could draw money.
He was unreal, and he is so brilliant. I mean, he did, and Jeff and I say that all the time. He taught us more than anybody else did in pro wrestling, just because we came to him and we had like kind of a mindset of like how we were doing things because of kind of how the business was changing at that time. But then he really like said, this is what the people have to buy. I remember one of the most instrumental things he told us. He said, the people in the first 5 rows, he said, when they see you punching someone or they see you striking someone, they have to believe it's real. He said, because if they don't believe it's real and if they can see through it and it's bullshit, then it'll be bullshit. And they won't accept you as being real. He said, yeah, you guys can do all those flippy flying maneuvers, this, that, and anything, but people have to believe that you could really whip someone's ass. So when you prove to people, especially the people watching you in those first 5, 6, 7 rows, that you can really whip someone's ass and they're like, damn, he's laying a whipping on this guy's ass, then that will make you a lot more credible. And it's so right. It's so true.
Yeah. When I first meetings in the Sportatorium, when I was there, the Von Erichs were there, Freebirds were there. And Michael Hayes, how there's always one guy that does the talking, and Michael was the guy. Michael was the one guy everybody listened to, and Michael says, "Here's what we're going to lay out." And he laid out the entire thing for everybody, and all these great legends. And Michael, Michael's always been known as that one smart guy.
Yeah.
In fact, Road Dogg one time told me, he said, I went to Michael and he goes, I said, hey, Michael, I haven't got this idea. And he said, before I left, Michael had outlined a 6-month program, including 2 pay-per-views. And Road Dogg goes, I don't think I can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
He's just a savant. He just slapped it in a crazy package.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
go ahead.
There were sometimes Michael would throw ideas out that would kind of, relate to who we
really
were or correlate to the style that we had. But then I would notice that some of these ideas, they would sound crazy, but they'd end up being great. But then some of them would be too crazy and too much. Like, for instance, he said, hey, I was thinking about this when we first had the No Mercy 99 ladder match against Edge and Christian. And that's the map that legitimately put us all on the map, right? It was like the big turning point for us and turned us into like being legitimate stars in pro wrestling. And I remember Michael said, hey, he said, is there something you could do where you had a ladder down? It's like a teeter-totter. He said, and maybe, you jump off the top rope and you hit one end of the ladder and Jeff's standing on the other and he goes flying across the ring and does like a big clothesline or a big crossbody. And I was like, well, I mean, that kind of sounds like Looney Tunes, like a Looney Tunes cartoon, you know what I mean? Like Roadrunner. And I don't know if we could do that. I said, but there is something interesting. If someone did sit or get on that and it was like a teeter-totter, it would pop up and you could use it like as a weapon to hit someone. And we ended up creating a spot out of that idea. The first idea was a little wild. But he thinks out of the box and doesn't put any limits on where his thoughts go.